Is there a bloodline that proves the existence of a mysterious hybridization event? Some independent researchers believe so. According to this extraordinary hypothesis, people with Rh-negative blood would have a direct genetic connection to ancient ancestors of unknown origin. But what is so special about the Rh-negative factor, and how does it differ from all the others? And why would this be evidence of an ancient genetic manipulation project? Lately, there has been a lot of talk on the internet about the Rh-negative factor and its possible implications, which has given rise to various theories. Well, today we will go on a journey to discover the Rh-negative factor, travel to the limits of knowledge, and analyze possible extraordinary hypotheses. But before we embark on this fascinating journey, if you haven't already done so, we invite you to subscribe to the channel to support our work and not miss our new videos. Blood, the life-giving fluid that flows through our veins, carries with it a series of secrets and mysteries that tell an ancient story. Among the unsolved enigmas is undoubtedly the Rh-negative factor. Only a very small percentage of the world's population possesses this unique trait. This characteristic, along with many others that we will discuss in the video, has fascinated the imagination of many researchers and has given rise to various myths, theories, and speculations. But to fully understand why some see the Rh-negative factor as evidence of an ancient genetic manipulation event, we must first understand what it means to have this blood type. To do this, we must travel back in time to the early 1900s. In 1901, Carl Landsteiner discovered blood types. His discovery revolutionized transfusion medicine, providing for the first time a scientific explanation for the adverse reactions that occurred after blood transfusions. Before Landsteiner's discovery, blood transfusions were risky procedures, often with fatal outcomes, because the existence of incompatible blood types was unknown. Landsteiner identified that the red blood cells of some people reacted by clumping together when mixed with the serum of other people. He classified human blood into 3 groups, which he named A, B, and 0. A few years later, 2 of his colleagues, Alfred von de Castello and Adriano Sturli, discovered a 4th group, which they called AB. This classification is based on the presence or absence of specific antigens on the surface of red blood cells. In 1937, researchers Carl Landsteiner and Alexander Wiener added a new category, discovering the Rh factor. The 2 scientists had set themselves the goal of better understanding the basis of compatibility and incompatibility of human blood. In the course of experiments conducted with the blood of certain primates, particularly the rhesus macaque, Landsteiner and Wiener came across a new antigen that they found present in some blood samples. This antigen caused an immune reaction when blood containing the antigen, later identified as Rh positive, was transfused into an organism that did not have the antigen identified as Rh negative. The discovery of the Rh factor has shed light on some previously unexplained pathologies, such as hemolytic disease of the newborn. This occurs when an Rh negative mother is pregnant with an Rh positive fetus. The mother's immune system can produce antibodies against the Rh positive erythrocytes of the embryo, which can cross the placenta and destroy the fetus's red blood cells, leading to anemia, jaundice, fetal edema, and, in severe cases, death. To recap, if we follow the classification of blood types A, B, 0, and Rh negative and positive, we have 8 possible blood combinations: A positive and negative, B positive and negative, AB positive and negative, and 0 positive and negative. But if there are different blood types, what makes the Rh negative factor so mysterious? The Rh negative factor is a mystery because it seems to have evolved from a different evolutionary line than the positive factor. Official science considers the A, B, and 0 blood types with a positive factor to be the oldest, those that have been present since the origins of humanity. The Rh negative factor, on the other hand, is thought to have appeared at a later time, in a relatively recent period, estimated to be a few millennia ago, in the Upper Paleolithic. But the reasons for its sudden appearance are unknown. Clearly, human blood, like any other part of our DNA, is potentially subject to genetic mutations. However, unlike other genes in our DNA, those that refer to blood appear to be much more stable than the other genes that make up the genome. Mutations that alter the genes that regulate blood tend to be much less common and are subject to more rigorous selection, because any blood mutation inevitably puts the survival of the species at risk. We can see this, for example, in hemolytic disease of the newborn, when a mother with an Rh-negative blood type gives birth to a fetus with Rh-positive inherited from the father. When this happens, the mother's immune system can interpret the fetus as a foreign body, and therefore attacks it and tries to eliminate it. For some independent researchers, however, this would be evidence of the existence in the distant past of a hybridization event that would have involved an unknown people carrying this unusual factor and humans. But how did they come to this conclusion? As we mentioned, there are several aspects that make the origin of the negative factor mysterious and unclear. One of these, for example, is its geographical distribution. The distribution varies considerably between different populations of the world. For example, it is relatively more common in Europe, particularly among the Basque population, and much less common in Africa and Asia. The Rh-negative factor therefore represents a minority trait in the global population, but in some regions of the world it is mysteriously more widespread. The Basque region is the place par excellence, where an average percentage of up to 30% of the population can be found, compared to an average presence in Europe of 15% and an average in the rest of the world of 3%. In this small strip of land, straddling Spain and France, there is the highest concentration of men with the Rh-negative factor. It is a very specific place where an ancient and mysterious people live, the Basques. The Rh-negative factor is not the only mysterious peculiarity of the Basque people. Another aspect that distinguishes this population is their culture and language. These, in fact, seem to have a different origin from all other European languages and cultures, making the Basque people a genetic and cultural enigma. These mysterious aspects have attracted the attention of many researchers who have tried to investigate the possible origin of this people. Among the many hypotheses put forward over the years, there is one that is extraordinary and fascinating. The Basques are said to be the direct descendants of the mysterious people of Atlantis, or rather, the descendants of the few survivors of the cataclysm that swallowed up the mythical island continent in the ocean. But what do the Basques and their genetic peculiarity have to do with the island described by Plato? As we mentioned, the Basques have an unknown language, different from all other European languages, and a prevalence of a mysterious genetic anomaly that affects their blood. These peculiarities have led several scholars to search for similarities with other populations in the world, and the surprises were not long in coming. Some researchers have in fact identified precise analogies between the Basque language and that of some indigenous South American populations. The two languages seem to have some common features. To this is added another interesting detail. These populations also seem to have a prevalence of the Rh-negative factor, higher than the global average. But how could these populations have come into contact thousands of years ago? As far as we know, it is not possible that this could have happened. To this we must add that an anomalous negative factor has also been found in other populations, such as the Berbers of the Moroccan Atlas, coastal groups settled in Wales, Scotland, Ireland, Holland, and the inhabitants of the Canary Islands. All these populations are located along or near the Atlantic coast, where the mythical island of Atlantis is said to have been located. It is also very curious that near the places where these populations live, there are the remains of mysterious megaliths. The Andean populations of Quechua and Aymara, for example, in addition to having a higher frequency of the Rh-negative factor, are settled near the sites of Tiwanaku and Pumapunku. These places are still enigmatic today, and seem to have been built by an ancient and mysterious civilization. The researchers who support this theory add another fascinating detail. Official science indicates the appearance of the negative factor to be around 30,000, 40,000 years ago, in the Paleolithic era. This historical period is not new to those who deal with mythology. The Greek historian Eusebius, for example, citing Manetho, a priest of the Temple of Heliopolis and custodian of the sacred archives, dates the beginning of Egyptian civilization to 30.544 BC. But what do the Egyptians have to do with the Atlanteans? If we go to Egypt and read the inscriptions in the Temple of Edfu, we discover that the ancient Egyptians are nothing more than the heirs of divine beings who come from a place beyond the Pillars of Hercules. These divine beings are said to have founded civilization and created man. After all, it was Plato who, during his stay in Egypt, learned from the Egyptian priests the ancient story of Atlantis, which he later narrated in his famous treatises.
In this sea beyond the Pillars of Hercules, there was an island larger than Libya and Asia put together. And from this island, one could pass to the other islands, and from the islands to the whole continent that lies opposite them and surrounds that true sea. But later, there were earthquakes and floods of exceptional violence, and in a single day and night of misfortune, the island of Atlantis disappeared, swallowed up by the sea, and from then on, it was impossible to navigate and find the way.
Is it possible, then, that a genetic testimony of this ancient people has survived to this day and can be found in the mysterious Rh negative factor? According to some researchers, yes. The Rh negative factor would be the proof that testifies to the existence in the distant past of another species that evolved separately from humans. The latter would in fact be the result of the hybridization between the members of this advanced civilization, which myths describe as deities, and the hominids present on Earth at that time. Clearly, this whole story is fascinating, but it should be taken with a grain of salt. Those who know our videos know that we believe the existence of ancient and advanced civilizations is very probable. But in this case, we believe that this whole story should be taken with caution, because there are no in-depth studies that can confirm or deny this reconstruction. For the sake of completeness, we must say that there are many other theories and hypotheses about the origin of the Rh negative factor. For example, it is said that those who possess it have certain special features, such as above-average intelligence or unexplained supernatural abilities, or that it is a characteristic of royal families or the men who wield power. However, we have not found any evidence or precise documentation to support any of this, at least for the time being. What we can say with certainty, however, is that blood groups with a negative factor are a mystery, and their origin has not been fully explained by science, and is still being studied today. But whether it is a random mutation that occurred thousands of years ago, and has survived to this day despite all the problems, or whether it is the residue of a testimony of extraordinary events that happened in the distant past, we cannot help but be fascinated by the knowledge that in our veins flows a part of our history that still waits to be written. We are now curious to explore this topic with you and learn your opinion. Write in the comments what you think, and if you liked the video, subscribe to the channel to support our work. Until the next story.